Hi, so we're back again for the second of our new songs cafes. I hope that you were able to watch the last one either live or on catch up if you did, and I hope that you enjoyed it. We've got a completely different song this week, which is "We're in the Darkest Night" by Matt Redman, written about 2008. Again, it's one of the many ones that actually I'd heard and had never played. And this is definitely one that when I came to play it and came to sing it, I thought, how on earth do you hit those notes? It goes right up to the top E in a couple of places. Which, if again, as I said last week, if you're a tenor or soprano, is fine, but most people do not have that voice range. So this one I am dropping down a key. So rather than playing it in G, I'm playing it in F. Although, because I've got a digital piano, I am cheating and using the transpose function, so ignore what my hands look like they're doing. A couple of people last time suggested that I just mention briefly the sort of the scriptural basis for the songs when we're looking at them. In some ways, this one's quite obvious. It's the story of Jesus still in the storm. And I think in some ways it's actually quite appropriate for situation at the moment, and it's one that we may be using in the service in a few weeks' time. So it's a good opportunity to learn it, I guess. But you also have the section in the chorus of Jesus still being the same today and throughout all time, and not actually changing at all. So it's quite appropriate as we're looking at what the church might be like as we eventually go back into our buildings, and how things may have changed, the way we worship may have changed, the things we're able to do. We might not be singing when we first get back, for example. We'll probably be queuing and washing our hands every few minutes during the service. All sorts of things are going to change, and the way that we work as a church will change, but that's happened a lot throughout the past, and Jesus has stayed the same throughout that. So again, in some ways, this feels like quite an appropriate one to do. You'll be pleased to know that I'm not juggling trying to change slides myself. I've recruited my wife to help, who is very, very carefully staying out of view of the camera, which I can understand. Not everyone likes cameras. We did a second ago have help from the cat, who has fortunately disappeared because she does have a habit of climbing onto the piano. So pretty much like we did last week, I'm going to go through the verses and the chorus a couple of lines at a time. I thought that it might be worthwhile actually playing and singing it through in its entirety first, to give you an idea of how the song goes together. And then we'll come back and we'll do the first verse and take that through a couple of times, because it's a really, really beautiful piece of music, but it's not necessarily the easiest to sing. For an introduction, the book itself doesn't actually have one, but there is an introduction that, if you listen to any of the recordings of it, is really quite nice. And it's more or less the first 3 or 4 bars just repeated a couple of times. So I'll do that. It's quite easy to figure out. The other option, if you're playing it for a congregation for the first time, is actually going to be to play through the first verse as an introduction, to give people an idea of what they're going to be singing, I guess. So we'll give this a try. When we were in the darkest nights, and wondered if our eyes would ever see the light, you were there, Lord, when we were in the stormy gale, and wondered if we'd ever live in peace again. You were there, Lord, you were there in the struggle, you were there in the fight, you were there all the time. So whatever lies ahead, whatever roads our grateful hearts will come to tread, you'll be there, Lord, and we will fix our eyes on you. And know that there is grace enough to see us through. You'll be there, Lord, you'll be there in the struggle. You'll be there in the fight. You'll be there all the time. We praise you, the God of our yesterdays. We praise you, the God who is here today. We praise you, our God, as tomorrow comes. We thank you for grace in our yesterdays. We thank you for grace in our hearts today. We praise you, our joy, as tomorrow comes. We will trust you, God. You're always closer than we know, always more involved and in control. We will trust our lives to you, the one who was and is to come. We praise you, the God of our yesterdays. We praise you, the God who is here today. We praise you, our God, as tomorrow comes. We thank you for grace in our yesterdays. We thank you for peace in our hearts today. We praise you, our joy, as tomorrow comes. We will trust you, God. So it goes more or less like that. I'm sorry, I lost my time in there a couple of times because I had a sudden panic as my computer just came up with lost connection, which is a really, really good way to give yourself a minor heart attack whilst you're doing this. It can be a little bit tricky to play. I was going at round about the right tempo. I might be tempted to slow it down a little bit, but there are some really, really odd bits of timing in here. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the first verse and take it through probably with really, really minimal chords. So let's see how that works. I also can't entirely see the screen properly, so I was asking for words that were already up because I couldn't read them. But yeah, we'll take it back to the first verse without an introduction this time. When we were in the darkest nights and wondered if our eyes would ever see the lights, you were there, Lord, when we were in the stormy gale and wondered if we'd ever live in peace again. You were there, Lord, you were there in the struggle, you were there in the fight even, you were there all the time. When we were in the darkest nights and wondered if our eyes would ever see the lights, you were there, Lord, we were in the stormy gale and wondered if we'd ever live in peace again. You were there, Lord, you were there in the struggle, you were there in the fight, you were there all the time. So that verse is quite easy to do. So the chorus is, again, it's on its own, it's quite easy. I think it's when you're starting to string everything together that I tend to trip over a little bit occasionally. So I'll just go from the last line of the verse leading into the chorus. All the time, we praise you, the God of our yesterdays. We praise you, the God who is here today. We praise you, our God, as tomorrow comes. We praise you, the God of our yesterdays. We praise you, the God who is here today. We praise you, our God, as tomorrow comes. So there's a couple of notes that you hold them on for slightly longer than it necessarily feels you might want to. It's particularly when you're singing the God who is here today, or so the God of our yesterdays, and the God who is here today. When you're singing God on those lines, it tends to hold on. It's a tiny bit longer than you maybe feel like it should be when you're playing it, and certainly when you're singing it. God who is here. So, and there's quite a lot of emphasis that you place on that line. Praise you, the God of our yesterdays. We praise you, the God who is here today. We praise you, our God, as tomorrow comes. We praise you, the God of our yesterdays. We praise you, the God who is here today. We praise you, our God, as tomorrow comes. And that just leads straight back into the second verse. So I'll just take that through. I'll go through the entire chorus and then into that verse. God of our yesterdays, we praise you. The God who is here today, we praise you. Our God, as tomorrow comes. So whatever lies ahead, whatever roads our grateful hearts will come to tread, you'll be there, Lord, and we will fix our eyes on you. Know that there is grace enough to see us through. You'll be there, Lord. You'll be there in the struggle. You'll be there in the fight. You'll be there all the time. So again, really, the verses are actually quite easy. Possibly a little bit more so at the moment because I've dropped them down a key. And it's definitely something I'd recommend doing because particularly when you're getting onto you'll be there all the time, that can be a bit of a strain if you're not that comfortable with the top Ds and top Es. So we'll go through first verse, the chorus, and then second verse. In fact, no, we'll go through the chorus again because the second time we do the chorus, it gets a bit longer and it gets into the we thank you for grace in our heart in our yesterdays. We thank you for peace in our hearts today. And as you noticed, I got those words wrong a few times the first time I did this. And it's something I will probably continue to do. But it is definitely a very different set of words there. We praise you, the God of our yesterdays. We praise you, the God who is here today. We praise thank you for grace in our yesterdays. We thank you for peace in our hearts today. We thank you, our joy as tomorrow comes. We thank you. One of the things I often get wrong with this, and I've heard a few other people do, is get it putting too long a pause in between. To be honest, if you do it, I wouldn't worry about it. Just give it an extra bar and come in with the "we thank you for grace." So I'll just do that transition in the chorus again, and then we'll try going through first chorus, verse 2, and the second chorus. And then we get to the weird bridge. And I say weird bridge because it's particularly at the end of this chorus. When we sing "As Tomorrow Comes," we will trust you, God. So you've got quite a jump up. You've got almost a half octave jump up. We will trust you, God. If you really want to, you can probably drop that down. We will trust you, God. Doesn't feel quite the same when you're singing it, and I struggle more with doing that than jumping up the half octave. But to be honest, it's going to be whichever you feel more comfortable with. As long as you're on the right notes, it's not going to matter too much which octave you're singing in. God of our yesterdays, we praise you. The God who is here today, we praise you. Our God, as tomorrow comes, we thank you for grace in our yesterdays. We thank you for peace in our hearts today. We thank you, our joy as tomorrow comes. We will trust you, God. So we'll give that a try going through, and then we'll give the bridge a try. When we were in the darkest nights, wondered if our eyes would ever see the light. You were there, Lord, when we were in the stormy gale. Wondered if we'd ever live in peace again. You were there, Lord, you were there in the struggle. You were there in the fight. You were there all the time. We praise you, the God of our yesterdays. We praise you, the God who is here today. We praise you, our God, as tomorrow comes. So whatever lies ahead, whatever roads our grateful hearts will come to tread, you'll be there, Lord, and we fix our eyes on you. Know that there is grace enough to see us through. You'll be there, Lord, you'll be there in the struggle, you'll be there in the fight, you'll be there all the time. We praise you, the God of our yesterdays. We praise you, the God who is here today. We praise you, our God, as tomorrow comes. We thank you for grace in our yesterdays. We thank you for peace in our hearts today. We thank you, our joy, as tomorrow comes. We will trust you, God. And then the bridge. You're always closer than we know, always more involved and in control. We will trust our lives to you. the one who was and is to come. So just go over that bridge a couple more times. It's kind of hard to loop back round the bridge on this one, I've found. But I'll see how well it works. We will trust you, God. You're always closer than we know. Always more involved and in control. We will trust our lives to you, the one who was and is to come. You're always closer than we know. Always more involved and in control. We will trust our lives to you, the one who was and is to come. We praise you, the God of our yesterdays. So it just loops back into the chorus. I definitely find that bridge is one that I don't want to do too many times through. It doesn't loop naturally. And to be honest, I find I love the words and I like the tune for it, but I find it much harder to sing. So probably doing it just once is going to be enough, particularly once you've learned it. So I think what we'll try now. I'd normally love to be able to ask people, would you like me to go over that again? It feels really, really weird doing this without that sort of interaction. But I think what we'll definitely do is we'll go through and we'll try going through completely from the beginning and see how well that works. And hopefully we'll make it through in one piece. Certainly hopefully without massacring the song too much. When we were in the darkest nights, wondered if our eyes would ever see the light. You were there, Lord, when we were in the stormy gale. Wondered if we'd ever live in peace again. You were there, Lord, you were there in the struggle. You were there in the fight. You were there all the time. We praise you, the God of our yesterdays. We praise you, the God who is here today. We praise you, our God, as tomorrow comes. So whatever lies ahead, whatever roads our grateful hearts will come to tread, you'll be there, Lord, and we will fix our eyes on you. And know that there is grace enough to see us through. You'll be there, Lord, you'll be there in the struggle, you'll be there in the fight, you'll be there all the time. We praise you, the God of our yesterdays. We praise you, the God who is here today. We praise you, our God, as tomorrow comes. We thank you, the guys in our yesterdays. We thank you for peace in our hearts today. We thank you, our joy, as tomorrow comes. We will trust you, God. You're always closer than we know. Always more involved and in control. We will trust our lives to you, the one who was and is to come. We praise you, the God of our yesterdays. We praise you, God who is here today. We praise you, our God, as tomorrow comes. We thank you for grace in our yesterdays. We thank you for peace in our hearts today. We thank you, our joy, as tomorrow comes. We will trust you, God. So, that's pretty much it for this one, I think. Should definitely say that if you liked it, please get in touch via comments. If you'd like to make any suggestions, if you'd like to suggest a song to learn, then please do get in touch. To be honest, if there's an older song in the book, one of the older hymns that you don't know, please do get in touch as well. Some of them I'm still struggling to learn. This one I actually found quite a challenge to do. But I love having the opportunity to learn a lot of them. The other one is if you're a musician, if you have a guitar or a piano at home, and would like to help out again, then please do let me know. We'll figure out how we can tie it in quite easily. The software we're using has quite a few options for that, and it's something I would be really, really keen to do. If only so people don't keep getting inflicted to my playing and voice, but get exposed to some of the musicians and singers that we have from right across the circuit. So yeah, I hope you found that useful. I hope that if we do this in a couple of weeks' time, you're at the very least going to recognize it and feel slightly more confident in singing it. And it will hopefully be one that we can add to our repertoire for when we are back to singing and worshiping in church. So, hope you had a good evening. I hope you had at least a bit of a sing, and really would love to hear from you with any suggestions. Have a good week.